in a place where I wanted to do something with purpose. I felt like I was made for more and I didn't feel aligned to the work that I was doing. I just felt like nothing was really lining up.
So you know that feeling when your life just starts shifting? It's kind of like you're outgrowing, maybe it's friendships, relationships, even the success that you work so damn hard to build feels like it just doesn't quite fit anymore. Krista Williams and Lindsey Simcik, the powerhouse duo behind Almost 30, didn't just build a top-ranking podcast with over 120 million downloads. They built a multi-million-dollar media empire.
If you're able to tell a story with your brand and who you are, that's really going to be the thing that has the most sales or connection with people.
They've built their brands, navigated friendships, business, motherhood, and evolved just at every single turn.
You're not behind. You're becoming.
In this episode, I am joined by Krista, and we are diving into how to outgrow your things, life, business gracefully, how to pivot with purpose, and how to really build that business that evolves right along beside you. We go deep in today's episode around becoming more visible, how you really work through creating that safety in your next level, how on earth they make money, and a whole lot more. So let's get into it. Hello, Krista. Welcome to Unstoppable Success.
Let's go. I'm so excited to be here, excited to connect with your audience and looking to provide them as much value as I can and just share whatever I've learned.
Oh, I'm so excited. And we've been trying to line up our schedules. I was in the US earlier in the year, but you were on your incredible book tour and you had so much going on. So I'm excited to dive into the podcast, the book, the empire that you and Lindsey have both built together. But I have to go back to the start. When you first started the podcast, did you ever imagine what it would grow into?
Absolutely not. And it's almost like something that I probably will never be able to recreate in my life. When I met Lindsey, I was working in the corporate world and I was in a place where I wanted to do something with purpose. I wanted to live with meaning. I felt like I was made for more and I didn't feel aligned to the work that I was doing. And I also was really struggling, with my body. I was kind of struggling with all the changes that were going on in my life. I felt like I should have been somewhere else. I felt like I should have been married with kids and a house and in a job I liked. I just felt like nothing was really lining up. And so when we met, I was in a rock bottom of sorts and she was having her own experience. And so we really started it out of the intention for us to connect, for us to have conversation, for us to feel less alone. And really, it was like a therapy for us. Like it was like what made us really survive this really trying time. And we had no intention for it to become something. I had no intention for it to go 10 years. I had no intention for myself to become a podcaster. But I think that's why it worked, is because so often we kind of get ahead of ourselves. And like if we know the path, we can kind of get in our heads or compare or just have all that normal stuff come up. And I think because there was no expectation, we were able to create something that was really special and really magical. Mm-hmm. And we were able to build something that not a lot of people had done at the time. I mean, starting a podcast 10 years ago wasn't really a thing. And so it gave us the space to create from like a place of pure intention rather than looking at what anyone else was doing. And so I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah, do you find that is the magic sauce? These days people are worrying about the algorithms and the hooks and the strategy and the crafting and like so much orchestration that it loses the magic. Do you feel like that is something that we're kind of missing these days?
Yeah, I love that. I love that point. I think it is. I think especially with AI and ChatGPT, and that's such a helpful tool, but it's like we're losing the human voice and the human emotion and the authenticity and like, the real person behind something. And I think what it really showed me was that if you do something out of like the sheer love of what you're doing and out of the sheer creativity and expression of it, it has to be successful. And I think for so many of us now, it's so popular and normal to monetize our creations and not monetize our creativity and monetize our gifts. I do that myself, but it almost like kind of messes up the creativity a little bit and messes it up because then we're changing what we're wanting to create for Instagram, for TikTok, for the audience and other people, rather than just creating from a really genuine and true place, which is always going to get us to be the most successful, but it's often the hardest thing to do.
Oh, the hardest, because it's kind of almost trusting that intuition, trusting your inner knowing, kind of just doing what you want to do despite what the world says, which can be so damn hard, especially when you're doing it publicly. So I want to talk about this evolution. You both have evolved so much since you began, and kind of evolving and going through these different seasons of life and growth, doing it in such a public way. How have you kind of brought your community or audience with you? Because particularly a lot of women that I speak to in entrepreneurship, when you build a brand, you build an identity, you say, this is what I do. I am an accountant, or I am a coach, or I am a fitness expert. And then one day you're like, I don't know if that's who I want to be anymore. So how did you kind of bring people on that journey with you?
Yeah, that's such a beautiful question. And I think it's so relevant, especially for women, because we are such like creatures that want to evolve. We want to grow. And that's what we came here to do as souls and spiritual beings. And I feel like part of my soul's path is one that's deeply of evolution. I think the first thing was with the podcast, at the beginning, for the first years, we never said that we knew what we were doing. We always were like, we are absolutely lost and confused. We are right along with you. And so there was never this identity that we sort of claimed. Like we were just kind of like, we are absolutely figuring this out right along with you. We do not have any answers. So we never really claimed to be an expert. And now I'm not saying that your audience of entrepreneurs should not claim to be experts, but that just was our experience.
Yeah.
And then also too, it was just something that we did so naturally. So it actually became the brand. So we chose to evolve in front of everyone because for me, I can't do it any other way. It's just who I truly am. And so then that became just what people came to us for and what people knew us for. And your brand can be you, like your name and who you are. Like Oprah is a brand. Krista is its own brand. Like each person could essentially be its brand. So allowing yourself to define your own terms and who you are and how you show up is huge. I also think in the commitment to evolving publicly, it was something that, almost became like how we were teaching. So what I know now and what I'll often tell women is that what I teach and oftentimes what I sell is what I've gone through and what I've grown through and what I now am an expert or a teacher in. So as an example, I was talking to you earlier, but Metamorphosis, which is my body transformation program, that's something that I went through. Like I went through my own body transformation journey and body love journey that was like just absolutely transformed my life. People knew from the podcast, if they listen, I talked a lot about my body struggles from the beginning. I really struggled with loving my body, with accepting myself. And so when I finally found out the tools from like a spiritual lens, from a psychological lens, and then from like the actual tactical tools that helped transform my body and my relationship to it, I decided to teach it. So just giving people permission to like allow themselves in their lives to be the lessons they learned and sort of what they offer and how they share with the world, because oftentimes that's like going to be the story that you're telling, and storytelling is what sells the most. So if you're able to tell a story with your brand and who you are, that's really going to be the thing that has, the most sales or connection with people. Just like as an example, as a last point, it's like those creators that create something that's like, this is such a silly, weird one, but like JoJo Siwa with her, her bows. There's this creator on YouTube. She's really big. She's not like my favorite or anything, but
I know her from Dance Mums.
Exactly. You know her.
Yeah.
She would wear her bows. And so her bows became her brand. And then she sold her bows. So it's like, it was just like her bows were a part of the story. And then she makes millions from bows. So you and your experience and your existence could be its own brand as your own unique identity. And then also too, just giving yourself permission to teach or to lead or to facilitate things that you've learned through and grown through, and essentially things that you've mastered.
Yeah, I think that is so powerful, because I think a lot of, I'm going to say particularly women, wait until they feel overqualified. They feel like they have to get 50 certifications or study something or be the number one expert in something before they're willing to share their knowledge and their story and their journey. And it's kind of like you only have to be one step ahead, if not in the trenches with your audience, and say, let's figure this out together. And I think exactly what you said, if you guys never allowed yourself to say, hey, we don't have it all figured out, but we're going to take you on the journey, you never would have impacted millions and millions of lives. And sometimes we forget it's not about us. It's actually about putting our fears aside, putting whatever narratives we've got and saying, maybe I have something that could impact someone today. I think that's everything.
I love that. I think that's such a beautiful way to sort of package it and sort of affirm your audience of everything that they know and everything that they are. And I think for me, I had to really look at my life and all of the things I've gone through in my life. And for your audience, this can be a really good exercise, but it's like just really kind of critically looking at, again, at your life and the aspects of your life that you feel like have really impacted you. So for me, as an example, it's my body journey, it's my divorce, it's starting a business with my best friend, it's, coming into my spirituality. And all of those things I talk about, all of those things I've experienced, all of those things I've learned so much in, both painfully and beautifully. And so all of the lessons that I'm learning, I'm not telling anyone that I have the answer, but I'm telling everyone what I know. And that's essentially what I'm offering as a teacher is like, I know this works. It's worked for myself. It's worked for my clients. And I'm hopeful that it works for you, but I don't really try and be too far ahead. Because you're actually better as a teacher if you're one step ahead with someone, because then you're more relatable, it's more helpful, it's more applicable, rather than someone being 10 steps ahead. So I think that's such a good point that you made that I just wanted to double click on, that people can teach when they're one step ahead. You could help someone that you're just a little bit further from them, rather than feeling like you have to be perfect.
Yeah, so powerful. Okay, I want to dive into the part where you shared everything. Like your divorce, you just mentioned, you shared kind of every step of the way. And again, as people start to grow a bit of a profile, I mean, it's kind of easier earlier on when you have a smaller profile, kind of like my 10 best friends are watching this. This is just girls having a chat. As you started to grow, was there ever a part of you that maybe felt like, ooh, I have to be careful how I say this or it might upset someone? Or was there anything that came to mind around that? Because I think we live in this era where we want to be as vulnerable and honest as possible. But then there's also the part of us that says, oh, I might get in trouble from the people in my life if I'm airing everything out.
Yes, it's not for the weak of heart. So just for background for your audience, if they, don't know like the nitty gritty details. So we started 10 years ago and it was just my best friend and I on the closet floor. So we were literally recording on our closets. We had like no listeners and I was talking to my best friend. I was just like sharing and saying everything under the sun, like my like nude photo stories, like dating stories, hookup stories, like about my family, about like my exes, about my current relationship. I was sharing everything. And that was a lot of why people started listening, because it was so interesting and fascinating. It was so relatable and it was so raw. And so I think honestly, a lot of our audience grew from that authenticity and that vulnerability. But what happens then is then you start to get listeners and then people give you feedback or the people you're talking about listen. Like as an example, my mom listened to some episodes where I talked about our relationship. I talked about her and I and kind of the struggles that we went through, because my mom and our relationship was one of the deepest and hardest relationships of my life. And I've learned a lot. But that was really painful. It was really painful for her to kind of hear something I had never told her on a podcast to millions of people. And there were also times when, like I went through my divorce. So I went through my divorce publicly, like, because we had shared our relationship publicly. And I will never forget, when I announced it, there was like a Reddit thread about it. And, when you're a public figure, people are going to say what they're going to say. And sometimes they say I'm on Reddit or your comments, whatever. And it just really bummed me out because there was comments about him and comments about us that were just not true. And yeah, it kind of made me rethink things where I was like, wow, like a part of me was like, I've shared so much with you guys and I'm trying my best to be really honest and really truthful in a way that's also respectful to someone that's not public. And that's also respectful to like what we had as a married couple. And it's still not enough. And that was really hard for me to metabolize. But it did kind of teach me and kind of made me rethink how I approach sharing with my audience. And so now I think I'm a little bit more processed. I think I'm a little bit more creative. So as an example, if I'm talking about relationships, I'll say, oh, one of my exes, and I'll just kind of make it general. Or if I'm talking about even like my current relationship, I'll be like, yeah, one of my other relationships. Like I will just kind of mix up timelines and data so I can get across the point that I'm making, but it's not so in the weeds. But it's been something that I've really worked with and struggled with. So for anyone that's in the process of wanting to be more vulnerable and authentic and share, first, just knowing that your story is your story and it's valid to be shared with people. So honoring that. I don't regret anything that I've shared. I just have had reactions to it. And then secondly, just trying your best to do like the work to get in right relationship with the situation potentially before you shared. But I think everyone's journey is really unique here, but I've had a really long and colored one.
Yeah. How did you handle those moments when people did listen and it kind of would have brought up some tough conversations?
Yeah, it was what's it's so interesting for my relationship with my mom is it almost was a gift to us because, and I'm taking responsibility for hurting her feelings for sure. So I'm just saying that. I don't want to be like, it was a gift, I'm all good. Like, no, I hurt her feelings. Like, there was better ways around it. But she listened to me share something that was very true and authentic that I don't think I could have shared with her to her face. So it actually was like her listening to me as an adult woman talking about something that hurt my feelings. And she actually took it pretty well. Like it was actually helped our relationship. I took responsibility. It was supportive. And so it's helped in a lot of ways. But for the ones where people had feedback and comments that were very painful, I've done a lot of work to sort of detach from the need for people to perceive me in a certain way. So it's taken a lot of work. And I also just honor that, and this is honestly after 10 years of being in the space, people are going to have their own perception or experience with who I am and what I do. Like, I remember I was out to brunch one time and I had just announced the divorce, and there was this girl that came up to me and she's like, oh yeah, I knew you guys would get divorced. Like, I saw your wedding pictures and I just knew from the pictures. And I just was like, I wasn't even, my friends were like, oh my God, can you believe she said that to you? Oh my, going off. And I'm just like, I'm having my own unique experience where I could perceive something and someone else could perceive something. And she was right. Like, it's just, I just kind of take it less seriously and I'm less attached to it. But there are days when things have hurt my feelings and things have really crushed me. And I'm not saying that, I don't get impacted by stuff, but I've known that to be in the role that I'm in, I have to, it's a part of it and it's a part of what I chose, and it's not my favorite, but I've just kind of known it's a part of the work.
Yeah. What advice would you have to someone who's maybe feeling called to step into a bigger platform, own their space, but then there's this like almost crippling fear? Because even for myself, I used to not even give people eye contact, let alone think about getting on a stage or running a personal brand. I was like, don't even look at me, let alone know I exist. And so what advice would you have to someone who feels that almost internal fire? They know they're ready for a bigger stage, but it's absolutely terrifying at the same time.
Yeah, I can understand. And I feel like so many women now, especially, are just ready to be on bigger stages. They're ready to be seen. They're ready to be heard. A lot of the women that I work with are in this space and place. And I think there's a lot of body-based somatic work that I think people can do if they want to be seen on a bigger stage or in a bigger place. And a lot of times the women that I'm working with as speakers or for their voice, I have them visualize at their house themselves on a stage speaking to 100 people, 1,000 people, 50 people, 10 people, and really give themselves the experience from like a body-based level of what that's like. And you'll notice, if I'm thinking about speaking in front of 1,000 people, my throat might start to close, my heart might start to beat, like I might start to get sweaty, and I'll start to get sort of that body feeling as if I was on a stage. And what's powerful about this is that you can metabolize all that fear in the safety of your own home. So I can be sitting on my couch just working through the fear, letting myself know that I'm okay and that I'm safe and all is well. And I can do that enough to get enough reps that when I actually get in the moment past visualization, I feel more confident and I feel more powerful and I feel more, ready for the thing. So that's a really great practice, is visualization, doing it repeatedly till you no longer feel that feeling in your body. I think the second thing is I used to go on stages and I used to be so focused on me. And I was like, okay, do they think I'm cool? Do they think I'm smart? Do they think I'm interesting? Like, I'd be like, okay, I have to make sure everybody in this room thinks I'm smart, interesting, all of these things. And I was almost like requesting the audience, or like maybe the internet or community, all the people, to affirm me and validate these very specific things, rather than going on stage and being like, how can I serve? And I know it's kind of cliche, people may have heard it before, but it really is like a flip switching in your brain when you're truthful about it. Like, as an example, I spoke on stage in Arizona like a month ago, and it was a really big event, and I was on stage on a panel with other women. And panels I love, but they're oftentimes challenging because it's like you're next to really powerful women, so it's easy to compare yourself. You know what I mean? Like, I sat next to this woman and she just was so powerful speaker, so clear, and everyone was like cheering. And I sat next to this other woman who was an amazing storyteller, and she was like just so good at stories. So I'm like kind of comparing in my head, and I'm listening to the audience of like who's cheering. And I just had to sit there, and I was like, okay, first of all, like they are unique women and I'm unique. I have my own unique gifts. I'm funny, I'm like direct, I'm clear. So I need to focus on my gifts, like not focus on being a good storyteller, being super powerful. I am funny and I have my own unique gifts. So focusing on your gifts is huge. So I need to get back in my lane, focus on my gifts. And then also it's like, not even like Krista, you don't need to be like, I'm the funniest, I'm the best storyteller. Then it's a show about me. It's like, what could I do to help these women in their business, in their life, in their purpose? Like, truly, how can I answer from the heart in the depths of the truth and really just provide them with value? So I understand, lastly, how women feel. It's so normal, and just honoring that part of you that wants to be seen and heard. That's so powerful, that's so magical, and that's so special. And so being excited about that feeling and that experience, and then doing some visualization practices, and then reminding yourself that it's not about you, it's about the value that you can give.
Oh, so much gold just in that like little section. So powerful, because yeah, I remember the very first time I got out on a stage and my body just seized up. Like, something just physically happens in your body. And I love visualization as well, because it's almost like the best way to practice without having to actually do 10,000 speaking gigs in a week.
It's getting the reps in, it's practice, it's like, and it's giving your body the training for that. And it's so powerful. I mean, even for you to share with your audience now, like, you were like, I was scared, my body shut down. Like, people need to also know that. And this is something that I think you said that I just want to like expand upon for a second. Being a public speaker is a skill. It's not just something that you're good at naturally. So you could be a naturally very, clear speaker. You could have natural gifts that support you as a public speaker. But really, public speaking has its own skill set. It's about your voice and tone and storytelling and body language and the joke you tell at the beginning. And so reminding people that, like, a lot of times people just think that they should be naturally good at everything. I should be naturally good at creating content online. I should be naturally good at podcasting. I should be naturally good at speaking on stage. It's like, no, these are skills that people take lifetimes to master and lifetimes to get good at, and years and years and years. And so just giving yourself so much grace in the process and having it be fun to learn a new skill.
Yeah, it's so interesting. The more that I get on stages, the more that I, speak to really confident, big, bold women who are on the biggest stages, you realize that everyone is just human at the end of the day. And oftentimes you don't get to see the nerves or the breathing or the somatic exercises or the things they're doing behind the scenes. And of course, over time, it gets easier and easier and easier. But it is something that you continue to hone in on, continue to practice. And yeah, I think it's so easy to look at someone and say, wow, they were just born confident. I know I used to do that. I used to think, oh, I have to be louder. I have to be the crazy hype person. And I was like, no, I'm quiet. I get to be quietly confident. That can be a thing as well.
Yes, I love that. Like, for the women listening, it's like, it's not looking at what anyone else is doing and just like, being like, what is my natural like gift? And you're like, I'm quiet and I'm clear and I'm powerful in that element, because you being authentic is the most powerful thing, not you being like performing to something. It's like, when I was on stage with that woman, I had to remind myself, like, I'm funny and I'm authentic, and that's my gift. And the more I can lean on my gifts, the better I am at that thing. So having people really understand their natural gifts, like you were just talking about, is such a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yeah. for anyone listening, because for me, for a long time, I used to hear people say, I'm authentic, I drop F-bombs on stage. And then part of me was like, does authentic mean, okay, maybe I have to start dropping. And I can't even believe these were actual thoughts that went through my mind. But I was like, okay, I have to start dropping F-bombs on a stage. And I won't even say the word now. Like, it just is not natural to me. Not that I think I'm going to be in trouble for saying it or anything, but it's how do you find, like, who am I authentically when sometimes there's not an example or someone that's almost giving that permission slip to kind of someone that you can relate to?
Gosh, well, first of all, you're doing that for women. So you are an example for women, as you like, just reminding yourself of that. And I love that question so much, because I think that we all as women have that. When we meet a woman that's like really like loud or like bold or cussing or like kind of like aggressive almost, you're like, oh, she's like, I'm authentic. And you're like, that's authentic. And you're like, I should be authentic. And it's like, no, like that might not even be authentic to her. Like that might not even be her truth. And so I've always found that like the true authenticity is just knowing yourself and your unique gifts. And sometimes what you can do to support yourself in that is I often have clients ask people that they love to reflect back to them like some of their own unique gifts. So as an example, Jess, you would go to 3 of your favorite people, your best friends, people that are like good communicators, people that love you, not like the friend that secretly hates you. Like, don't ask them. You know what I mean? They're like, I have feedback. And so you're like, no. So like asking them like, hey, what do you think I'm naturally good at? Like, where do you think I excel? What do you think my gifts are? And this can really help you to see the gifts that other people see in you for yourself. So sometimes we're so in our own experience and we're so blind to our own gifts that it's hard for us to see. So someone might say, Jess, you're so powerful. You're so clear. You know just what to say, when to say it. You say the right thing at the right time. And so then you could be like, oh my God, okay. I know I'm not the F-bomb girl, but I know just what to say at the right time. I'm not the whatever girl, but I'm this type of person. So having your friends and community help reflect back to you what you're naturally good at can help you just drop into your own authenticity rather than trying on or performing something that doesn't fit.
Yeah, it's really just gathering those data points, which is really awesome. This is just so, so powerful. I want to talk about business because I'm sure, as you said, when you started out with the podcast, you didn't imagine, let's build a multi-million-dollar media empire. So at what kind of point did you realize, okay, maybe this is a business. Maybe we need to take it a little more seriously or look at it from a CEO lens?
So when Lindsey and I were recording, I think we were probably 7 months in, and we really started to grow at that point, and we really started to get a good amount of listeners. And I had been trying to be a blogger before. So I was like, I want to be a blogger and work with brands and all of that. So I had kind of had a little bit of experience of reaching out to brands and working with brands, like light. And so I was like, I wonder if we could monetize the podcast. Like I knew podcasts made money. I didn't really know how, but I was like, I desperately need to get out of my corporate job. So my intention really wasn't to start a business, to make millions of dollars. It was to get out of the corporate job I was in because I hated my life. So I was like, okay, what can we do to do that? So I was like, I'm going to figure out how to podcast monetize. Like, what can we do? So I reached out to some of the brands that I'd worked with for my blog. And I was like, hey, we have a podcast. It has this many listeners. Like it's this demographic. We're charging $250 an ad. Like, would you do it? And I had a few brands say yes. And we had them on the podcast. And then we also did like extra things. So we like kind of went above and beyond. We had them on the podcast, which was promised. And then we also did social media posts and kind of just really, really built it up. And because we had already built the trust of our audience where we were authentic, we were raw, we were saying all of the things, they were really trusting the brands that we were bringing. And so that ended up sort of growing and growing and growing. And I think for me, I just was like, I wanted to treat it like a business in the sense of I wanted it to make money again to get out of my corporate job. So when we started to make, a couple $1,000s a month, I was like, cool, this is great, extra groceries, all that. But I think the moment where I really was like, this is something and this is going to be my job was we got an offer to do a speaking gig. So I think we were like 2 years in at this point and we were making a good amount of money, but I didn't feel like it was enough. I felt comfortable to leave. And this woman was like, we want you to speak at this panel and we'll pay you like, I think it was like $4,000 or something for an hour. And at that time I was making like $4,000. I was making like $8,000 a month, 10,000, I don't even know. But I was like, I will make $4,000 in an hour doing something I absolutely love. And I'm making X amount of dollars in an hour at this corporate job. Like, something is going on here. And if I take the 40 hours a week, 50 hours a week I'm working at my job and just apply it to this, like, something's got to give. So that's when we really started to double down. And what I'll say, just, for anyone that's listening too, I didn't quit my job without like 6 months pay in the bank. So when Lindsey and I quit, we had like 6 months secured money in the bank of what we would pay ourselves. I had forecasted our revenue. So I think there was like a while that the energy of things was like, just quit your job, like follow your dreams, follow your passions, all of that. And I think that's fine, but I actually don't really think that's the smartest thing. So taking your business seriously is also taking like the numbers seriously, taking the finances seriously. So I really set us up for success in a way that we were safe and it was fine. And it was really strategic and mindful the way that we quit, so that it could be something that we built and sustained from that point.
Yeah, that's a really awesome story, because obviously you hear the stories of people saying, I just leapt and I had no plan and I had, no baseline. And I know for me, when I was looking at quitting my job, I always told myself, when I'm earning X number in my business, then I can quit. But for me, it was a little bit different, where the money was nowhere near what I was earning in my full-time job, which was very minimal at that. But for me, I kind of almost created a backup plan, and I looked out the window and I saw a McDonald's and I said, you know what? I would rather give it a shot and then get a job there than not give it a shot. And at the time I was living at home with my parents. And so I do think, creating, like you said earlier, that somatic, that nervous system safety is key, because you can't build a business from a state of just complete dysregulation and fear every single day. So yeah, I think that's really interesting. And even, whether people stay in their full-time job, whether they quit, having some sort of level of safety.
It's huge. I think the safety for me, I found safety both in building the confidence of showing up every single day for the podcast for 2 years. I also had Lindsey, I had my best friend to rely on. And then also it builds confidence and safety to actually like go through the action of building the plan financially. And I think, we women, we're so creative and flowing and like in our feminine. And I love to be in my feminine. There's no one that loves it more. And there is a masculine structure that's required in business. And so really being like able to be talking about your money, understanding your money, planning for your money, is just a really important part of you being an actual like business person beyond just like a creative. That's what makes you a CEO, is you have like an understanding of all aspects of the business, and you're able to really tend to your business in a way that's going to support your life.
Yeah, it's such an identity shift, isn't it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I would love to know, because we live in this really awesome era where even just 50 years ago, there was maybe 3 jobs for women that they could choose from. Now it's almost like you can make up any job you want. You can literally make it up out of thin air. And so I always love to ask women, like, how do you make your money? What are the income streams? You've mentioned brand deals and speaking gigs, but how else do you monetize? But then I know that you and Lindsey also have your separate things as well. So can you take us through how you make your money?
Mm-hmm. Love it. Yes. I feel like I have to explain this to my parents like every time I see them. So yeah. I'm so ready for it. So I always say I make money being myself. So however I'm being myself, I want to try and make money from it. But almost 30, the brand. So we started the podcast originally. The podcast we monetize through brand partnerships. So that's sponsors that pay to have their ads on the show. And then that came into brand deals on social media, because we were building a social media following as we were building the show. And then from that point was speaking engagements. And then from that point was retreats that we hosted people at. And then we had merchandise, and then we had tour. And then we added a membership, and then we added courses and programs, and then we added coaching groups and all this kind of stuff. So it was really like, what do we want to do and what are we interested in? And then what does our audience want from us? So we had to be in tune with what the audience was interested in, because you don't just want to give them something that like they don't even care about. So we were like noticing they wanted to gather more in person. Cool, let's do events. Cool, let's have a retreat. We were noticing that, the brand deals, brands were wanting more than just ads. So we gave them that. So it was like a little bit like following the lead of the audience, which I don't know is always a good idea, but just kind of sharing what we have. But right now, almost 30, we have the podcast, we have social media, and we have the book because we just wrote a book. So we kind of scaled down a little bit on the other things, on the courses and programs. We did our tour this year. We had that as well because we focused on our own businesses. So I started my own business, like I think 2 years ago. I had my own brand deals like in social media that I had done for years. But now my business is brand deals through social media. I do consulting with companies for communication and like company, team dynamics. I also do one-on-one coaching with women, and then I do retreats, and then I do courses and programs.
The list is endless. You're like, I think that's it. But there's probably
I think
about,
that's, what's funny though, babe, is like, honestly, I'm like, it's cool that I do all this stuff, but then also I'm like, sometimes I'm like, I just wish I sold a product. And I'm like, I make peanut butter, and everyone's like, great, we love that.
oh yeah, the easy. I've been there, and actually it's just so soul fulfilling to get paid to be you. I say that as well, you know. Okay, so it's really cool just seeing your evolution. Obviously you built almost 30 together, and then having your separate businesses and separate journeys. How do you manage, I guess, the time? Because now you're like, Jess, I'm doing like 10 income streams. We're doing speaking gigs, we're doing tours, we're traveling, we're trying to manage life. How do you manage the balance between all the different projects?
I would say, to be completely honest with you, I feel like I'm managing it well. I feel like I handle it really well. I wouldn't necessarily say that I feel balanced or I felt burnt out this year, to be honest with you. So this year we launched our book in June, and that meant we were on tour. That meant we were doing I think we did like 60 podcast interviews. We did a bunch of press and, a bunch of stuff behind the scenes. And then from that, I had, a lot of parts of my business that needed tending, like my retreats and my clients and all of that. So honestly, I feel burnt out. And so I don't feel like I have the best balance. And I think right now I'm really working to strip down and kind of focus things and get a little bit more clear on spending my time. But I do a lot. And I say the way that I'm able to do so much or produce so much is that wherever I am, I am. And so what does that mean? So I think before I'd be like in a meeting, and my mind would be like thinking about something else that I have to do, or the meeting I have next, and the thing that's still open, or the tab that's still open. Or I'd be like on social media, but like needing to be doing something else. So now, just through meditation and mindfulness, it's like if I'm on a meeting, I'm talking about the thing we need to be talking about, and I'm getting everything out of that meeting I need to get out of that meeting. I'm not like leaving not sure what we're talking about or what our next step is. And that also means like just I'm getting as much done as I can so that I'm not like lagging into things, and it's not like bleeding into other areas of my life. I found that to be really helpful. And then otherwise with like streamlining my business, I have help. I have an amazing team with almost 30. I have an amazing team of my own, and I am not afraid to delegate. Like that is not something that is a problem for me. Like I wish I could delegate everything. Like sometimes I'm like, my cleaners were over who I love, and I was like, will you help me unpack my stuff? Like I will delegate everything. So knowing when to delegate is really good, but also not claiming to be an example. Like I wouldn't necessarily say I'm an example of like a very balanced life of someone that's very successful. I don't think I have a lot of balance right now.
Do you feel like it's kind of goes through seasons where you have more balance, maybe you have a bit less?
I think it does. And I think what also has happened is I've expanded my capacity so much that I know what I'm capable of, and I know I'm capable
Yeah.
of doing a lot. And so then I'm like, ooh, but last month I was doing 50 things. Like, how can I do 100 things? And so I need to be more mindful. Like if I'm going to live a seasonal life where I have seasonal launches or seasonal pushes, I need to actually take the time to rest. Because the rest is actually really important for showing up in the best way possible for everything.
Now, I can really relate to you on the expanding of the capacity. Every month or a quarter or season, I'm like, wow, how did I hold all of that? How did I do so much? I remember in the past doing my first ever stage workshop, and it just took the energy out of me for almost 2 months for one day. And then now I'm backing it up with 4 in a row and squeezing in 3 podcasts every day and, similar to yourself, I'm like, I know my limits now. And as long as I have solo time to recharge, I know I can keep it going. But yeah, I think that's really, really relatable, especially for high achieving, the ambitious women out there. We're like, how much more? I'm competing with myself on the daily.
100%. I'm like, I keep myself my cortisol high enough. Like, I don't need anybody else to do that.
Yeah. Okay, I want to talk about your relationship with Lindsey for a moment. Because let's be honest, most people don't even have friendships that last 10 years, let alone run a whole business with them. Because, we have friends for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And, we grow, evolve, we go different directions. So what has that journey been like? Because it's very rare to even want to go into business with your friend. You're like, I love you, but we probably are not going to work together.
That's a really smart thing to do, to think that. I think a lot more people should question it before they go in. Yeah, so Lindsey and I have been best friends for 10 years. We met at a time in our lives, like I explained before, where we were kind of at rock bottoms and we felt really lost. And so we kind of trauma bonded a little bit on this experience that we were having and got very close very quickly. I will say, just like as a baseline, like Lindsey is an absolute like soulmate of mine in this lifetime. And what we have is incredibly special. And I don't know if I would say I just have to give credit to our souls and to God for bringing us together, because I think a lot of the gift of what we have is beyond kind of what our human selves could do as friends. When we started the business, we didn't really know it was going to be a business. So we're kind of like, we love doing this thing. Let's make money from it. And then it really evolved and grew from there. I think for us, what's been challenging for the both of us is, how do we balance being best friends and then business partners? Because when you have a business, it's like a child. So whenever we're on the phone, we're talking a lot about business. There's so many things going on. There's so many conversations to be had. There's decisions to be made. There's stuff we need to do. And it can almost like forget about the relationship, like a parent. Like if you're a parent and you have a newborn, you're just talking about the newborn, you're in the newborn's life, you forget about the actual relationship. So we committed to making time for us to like spend time as best friends and be together as best friends and not talk about business and make sure that we're prioritizing our friendship. So that means our business calls like will be like 50% business, 50% friendship. And that also means that we've done a lot of work together. We had a coach that worked with us for years that supported us in our relationship. We have therapists on our team that support us in just being the best people for one another. But she's taught me so much about being in true relationship and being in true friendship. And our friendship has felt both deeply connected and also very sovereign and free. And we've always come to the table as like just a tip for people. Whenever we have something come up for us, we always come to the table taking full responsibility for whatever's coming up. So if I'm feeling triggered by a business decision that she made, maybe I could say, the story I'm telling myself is that, you don't really care about my opinion in business because you made this decision without me. And so I'm saying, I'm kind of getting her off the hook that she did something that intentionally hurt me by saying the story I'm telling myself. And then I take responsibility for how I feel. And when you can come to the table together with communication skills and strategies that are loving and open, you're so much more likely to have a deeply loving friendship for a long time.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I took away from all of that was just how intentional you are to work on the relationship. I think people just assume you just works or it doesn't work. And if it works now, it's going to work forever. But being committed to not just having one coach, you've got therapists, you've got people helping guide you. But then I think it's just testament to also both of you to always be committed to your own growth as well. Because, at the end of the day, people only grow as much as they're willing to grow. And so that's really beautiful to hear. But I think the best tip that I heard from all of that was just, this is the story I'm telling myself. And I think whether that's in business partnerships, whether that's in relationships, friendships, it's such a powerful sentence because it's no longer feeling like an attack on them and then their ego gets the defensiveness and then it just spirals downhill from there. But that is so just beautiful and powerful, but also you got to put in the damn work.
Mm-hmm. It isn't always beautiful. Like, it's a beautiful relationship, but like any beautiful relationships, we worked on ourselves and we worked on it together. And it's been worth all of it. And I think oftentimes people want deep, intimate relationship with people that really see and love them, but don't want to actually do what it takes to have that, which means they're going to have uncomfortable moments. You're going to have repair. You're going to have, moments where you don't feel good. And you don't feel good in the process of feeling really, really good and feeling seen. So just remembering that some of the discomfort could be some of the opportunity that you're having.
Yeah. Do you guys have like separate tasks in the business or separate roles that allows you to stay in your own lanes as well?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question too. And so for anyone in any business, it's really important to have um, clarity on roles and responsibilities. And I think for Lindsey and I, we kind of just worked, what are our natural gifts and skills? What is my experience? What is her experience? And how does that fit? So for me, I was in the corporate world for a long time. I know a lot about business. I know a lot about strategy. I know a lot about sales. I know a lot about teams. Lindsey has been a performer for a long time. She's amazing on camera. She's amazing with her voice. She's amazing with team stuff. She's an amazing communicator. She's just essential as part of the business. And so we both had our own things that we just sort of like leaned into and claimed as the roles that we were in so that we didn't cross over all the time and so that we could both respect one another. Because for a while we were trying to do each other's stuff. And it's really much better to have deep clarity on what you're good at and what you bring to the business.
Yeah. I think that's really awesome. Even whether it is a business partner or even just staff, I'm learning as well to have clear paths, and we're not all trying to do everything all at once. So yeah.
Clarity is everything. Over communication with everything. Like, even if you feel like you're beating a dead horse, it's so helpful, especially for businesses that are online and all over the world. It's going to help you so much.
Yeah. Oh, well, I know you briefly touched on you recently launched your book, Almost 30. We're going to put all the links to the show notes to that, to your social media, to all of your platforms. But if you had to tell people who haven't read the book yet, what is just one takeaway or one message that you would want them to have from reading the book?
The message I think that I would want them to have is, you're not behind, you're becoming. And I felt so behind in life in so many areas. I wasn't married when I thought. I didn't have as much money as what I should have had, or I didn't look the way I should have looked, all these things. And it's really just your becoming story to become the person that you came here to be. And I think so many people feel so stuck and behind, and it's just really a part of their path and their soul journey. And the more you can see yourself and your journey as like an adventure, instead of like hitting timelines and milestones, the happier you'll be and the better your life will become.
Ah, wow. So powerful. So guys, we're going to put the links to the show notes for the book, for all of that good stuff. Quick question. If people are over 30, should they still read it as well?
Yes, I'm over 30 and I wrote it. So yes. And honestly, it's a guidebook to any transition in life and any change in life. We have sections from our guests from the show, like Glennon Doyle, Jay Shetty, Gabby Bernstein, Dr. Nicole LaPera. So we have really insightful sections from some of our amazing guests over the years. And then we have really vulnerable shares and stories. And then we just have really actionable tips and tools for anyone that's like on their spiritual path or their awakening journey.
Ah, beautiful. Okay. Last but very much not least, I'm kind of on this mission where I feel like women downplay their wins or downplay their success a little bit too much. And I think it's kind of this era where we need to step into owning our success unapologetically. I call it your obnoxious brag. Why can't we be obnoxious about it? Why can't we say, I'm damn proud of myself? So my question to you is, what is your obnoxious brag right now?
My obnoxious brag is that I just hosted a retreat in Ibiza. I did 2 back-to-back, one in Switzerland and one in Ibiza. And I just crushed. I just absolutely held the container, provided an amazing experience, was loving and deep, yet powerful and inquisitive. Like, I just was like, it was top tier facilitation. And I just was like, no notes on my teaching. Like, actually, I always have notes for myself, but I just felt incredibly proud that I'm a woman that can be supporting women in deep transformation and growth and do it with love and do it with power and do it as myself. So that's my brag.
Oh my gosh, I felt it. It's just my favorite thing. Hearing women just be like, no notes for myself. I'm owning
Wait,
it. I'm crushing it.
I literally love that. I'm gonna bring that to a dinner. That's a good thing to bring to dinner with girlfriends. Be like, hey, what's your win?
Yes, I recently actually, so I did an Australian tour recently and I hosted dinners around the country. And I did that. I got everyone to write it down at the start of the dinner. And it was very interesting, the mixed response, because some people it made them feel uncomfortable. Some people, they were like, oh, I cannot think of anything because it's this muscle. Our brains are not wired to focus on the success. It's focusing on the threats and all the things going wrong and all the gaps. And so I was like, wow, this is just so powerful. And then everyone got to celebrate each other and it was just such a beautiful thing. So send me an invite. I want to come to the dinner when
Oh
you're
my
when
God,
you host that.
I'll shout you out. I'll be like, Jess told me this. I will not take credit. I will be like, Jess told me she's starting a movement, and that felt really good for me. So I'm really grateful you asked that question. And, honestly, this was such a beautiful conversation. And I'm hopeful that, there was some wisdom and nuggets that were
Oh
supportive for
my
your
gosh.
audience, your
I can
journey. And
guarantee there is nuggets in every single moment of all of
okay,
this.
good.
So
Because I just honor the entrepreneur. I honor the woman that's going for her dreams, being one of them myself. And I know it's not easy every day, but you got this.
oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It has been an absolute pleasure and can't wait to hang out when I'm back in the US or if you
I
come
would
down.
love that. I promise I will see you. And I'm so grateful for this conversation that I could join and be with your audience. And I'm so grateful that you're helping women with their voice and speaking, like, especially with your story and just how incredible of a communicator and curious question asker you are. I'm just really grateful.
Oh, well, I am so grateful for you putting in the 10 years of work, spreading your incredible message. And I'm sure there's many, many more to come. Thank you so much.